Revealed. My daughter-in-law's shocking ultimatum while freeloading in my home for 3 years. Rachel could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her. The delicate cracks in her already fraying relationship with Jenna loomed larger than ever. 3 years. 3 years of sheltering her daughter-in-law, who had once been full of ambition and promise, now appeared nestled in a cocoon of dependency. It was supposed to be a support system, a family pulling together during tough times. And yet, the idea that Jenna was freeloading in her home gnawed at Rachel like a stray cat scratching at her conscience. As her own dreams of a peaceful retirement faded further into the horizon, a suffocating ultimatum slipped into view. Find a job or leave. The feel of the freshly polished wooden table beneath her fingers barely eased the rising anxiety within. Each week, she buried herself in her responsibilities as a school administrator, guiding children through their learning journeys while grappling with her own discontentment. A deep stare into the mirror subtly betrayed her lines, creasing her forehead signaled more than just age. They were unpaid bills of a life shaped by grief and sacrifice. The warmth of her neighborhood's well-manicured lawns felt especially distant now, as if high walls had sprung up between her and the other mothers at the book club. They whispered their doubts, feeding into her own growing insecurities. Had she made a mistake letting Jenna in? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Shuffling through unending paperwork, Rachel felt a familiar dread tightening around her heart. Jenna's shift at the diner didn't pay her well, and still the clock ticked away precious moments. The determination to protect Jenna, to give her another chance, wrestled with an equally intense desire for Rachel to reclaim her own purpose. Her plans for retirement smeared like a watercolor painting running in the rain. Was Jenna's financial struggle a crutch, or a legitimate hurdle? As Rachel passed by the daughter-in-law's bedroom, once vibrant with dreams, now just a chaotic half of a life, muffled cries punctuated the suffocating silence, and anguish bubbled deeper within her chest. Just then, the erratic knocking on the door jolted her. It reverberated through the house, echoing her internal storm. Rachel's breath hitched a sudden wave of fear. What if it was someone from Jenna's past? A ghost that could unravel the fragile bonds they held. The way Jenna had broken down the previous night, bearing the weight of her family's financial history, the shared desperation tightening the air around them. That needed vulnerability stirred something in Rachel. She could no longer ignore the generational trauma behind the cycles of dependence. But the nagging question remained. Where did her loyalty truly reside? With Jenna, or her own crumbling dreams? As Rachel braced herself to face whoever stood helplessly against her door, the air was thick with unresolved questions, forcing her to confront the uncharted territory of their relationship. Everything hinged on that uncertain moment. The fabric of their family dynamic hung precariously in balance, stretching toward an inevitable breaking point, a whispered promise of disruption looming just beyond the entrance. Rachel opened the door with a cautious grip, instantly revealing a figure that sent her stomach plummeting. It was Jenna, her eyes swollen and red, the aftermath of an emotional storm brushing across her features. Rachel's heart raced. She felt every muscle in her body tension with unspoken words. "Rachel, I can't do this anymore." Jenna's voice cracked. A thin veil of defiance draped over her vulnerability. "I need to stop pretending that everything's okay." The moment hung in the air, heavy with unresolved pain. Rachel felt all her fears and hopes collide with a force that threatened to topple her emotional balance. "Then what do you want?" Rachel asked, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling in her mind. I need to figure things out for myself," Jenna replied, burying her face in her hands abruptly. "But I can't seem to get started. I don't know where to begin." The deep-rooted conflict rose within Rachel. Should she simply step back and let Jenna face the consequences of her choices? Or should she offer help, even when it could perpetuate the very cycle they were struggling to break? The weight of her daughter-in-law's fears mirrored her own growing discontent, igniting a slew of questions in Rachel's mind. In a surge of clear thinking, Rachel knew she had to take control not just of Jenna's situation, but of her own spiraling life. Why don't we sit down and make a plan together? Goals, timelines. It might give us both some direction. Rachel's offer was a lifeline threaded delicately on her own desire for resolution. Jenna looked up, vulnerability and gratitude flooding her face. You would do that for me? It's time for both of us to make changes, Rachel said, her voice gaining strength. You need to start standing on your own 2 feet. And I need to stop feeling like I'm losing myself. The profound honesty in Rachel's admission surprised even her. It was an acknowledgement of her own discontent, clawing away at her for far too long. She could see years of muted ambition swirling in the memories of her unfulfilled retirement dreams, whispering her name as if to insist she reclaim her own identity. Rounding the corner to the dining table, she gathered paper and a pen, placing them in front of Jenna. Let us break this down. How much do you need to earn a month? What skills do you have that you can develop? It's not going to be easy, but we can do this. As her daughter-in-law hesitated, Rachel pressed on, fueled by a resolve that was both new and familiar. She sketched out a loose framework while Jenna found her voice, the air in the room shifting from uncertainty to purpose. With every strategic note they made assignments, application deadlines, budget constraints. Rachel felt a sense of ownership reinstated in her life. Hours passed unnoticed, and with each idea they exchanged, Rachel's heart surged with a flicker of excitement. She had become an architect of not just Jenna's future, but her own as well. The familial bond began to shift, morphing into a tentative partnership fraught with challenges, yet bound by a mutual need for growth. But just as the evening wound down, Jenna's phone buzzed violently, pulling them both back to the harsher reality outside their sanctuary. It's my mother, Jenna breathed, casting a wary glance at Rachel, as if the approval needed rested heavily on her shoulders. The impending weight of that conversation threatened to unravel the threads they had just begun to weave. In that moment, Rachel realized that unveiling the tangled past could very well derail everything they had just put in motion. Would it plunge them back into dependency, dragging their efforts into the murky waters of doubt yet again? Facing Jenna, Rachel steadied her breath, looking not just at her troubled daughter-in-law but at the horizon of her own unexplored potential. You know what we talked about today, those first steps we made? Keep that in mind, she urged, feeling an intense determination swell within her. No matter what happens next, it matters that we keep moving forward. And as Jenna answered the call, Rachel braced herself for the decisions ahead, both for her and for Jenna. The crossroads stretched before them, as uncertain as dusk falling upon the day, weaving shadows of doubt through their budding resolve. Each decision loomed over them, carrying possibilities that could either fortify or unravel their paths. But this time, Rachel was not merely an observer in her life. She was ready to lean into the tumult of change, determined to confront whatever awaited on the other side of that door. The breakthrough felt palpable, but as the call concluded, a single question echoed louder than the rest. Was the past about to resurface to destroy the fragile progress they had taken? The phone call felt like an intrusion, ripping through the fragile atmosphere Rachel and Jenna had built. Jenna listened, her expression flipping from confusion to apprehension as words from her mother tumbled through the receiver. As Jenna's eyes clouded with anxiety, Rachel's heart raced, propelled by the urgency of the moment. What if she doesn't understand? Jenna's voice trembled. The raw emotion reflected deep-seated fears Rachel recognized all too well. What if this just plunges me back into the deep end? Rachel leaned forward, cut through the rising tension with clarity. Jenna, this is your chance to assert yourself. It's about reclaiming your narrative. You can set the tone of this conversation. You've taken the first steps today, don't backtrack now. Jenna nodded hesitantly, but Rachel could see the skepticism buried beneath. She could feel it wrapping around her own heart like a vine tightening with every passing moment. The path ahead was uncharted, filled with potential pitfalls, yet Rachel sensed their trajectory had irrevocably changed. Confidence bloomed in her, the kind she had nearly forgotten existed. As Jenna ended the call, a silence filled the kitchen, heavy with the weight of the aftermath. She wants to see me tomorrow, Jenna murmured, her shoulders slumping slightly, defeat looming within her eyes. She's not going to let this go. What if I disappoint her again? What if it's the same old argument? Rachel took a breath, letting the air fill her lungs, her mind racing. Those questions didn't just ring for Jenna. They echoed her own unvoiced dilemmas. She had struggled with similar fears regarding her own future, years of hesitation and procrastination lurking on the fringes of her ambitions. This time will be different, Rachel asserted, feeling the firm tone of her voice steadier than she had anticipated. You need to approach her with the changes you're making. Not as someone stuck but as an empowered individual, someone who has goals, who's taking action. It's time to shatter expectations. Jenna looked up, the recognition of shared fears illuminating her expression momentarily. Rachel recognized a spark, a flicker of potential in the shadows. It was a reminder that one could craft their own reality if only they dared to take the leap. Rachel pondered her own choices, wondering how she could stand alongside Jenna, while navigating the labyrinth of emotional obligations that came with familial ties. Today had emerged as a metaphor for her own journey. She longed to disrupt the pattern of complacency that had crept into her life, much like Jenna's struggle for independence. As Jenna began to speak, Rachel's mind wandered to her own dreams, those brushed aside in the name of duty and comfort. It was time to give voice to those dreams. Let us make a plan for you, and for me, she proposed suddenly, a revelation igniting within her. I want to start painting again, she admitted, the words slipping out before she could overthink them. Something small, something just for me. Really? Jenna's curiosity bubbled through her weariness. I didn't know that about you. Surprising, isn't it? Rachel smiled with newfound resolve. But what's a dream without action? Let us motivate each other. You focus on your goals and I will take back my own passions, reclaiming the parts of myself that I've neglected. Jenna's enthusiasm began to bubble over. A switch flipped within her, as if Rachel's admission ignited that same spark of determination. They began sketching possible action plans not only for Jenna's confrontation with her mother, but also for Rachel's creative ambitions. Ideas flowed freely, colorful aspirations unfurling like petals opening to the sun. But amidst the excitement, Rachel could not shake off that ominous feeling threading through her. Their efforts felt like a tightrope walk. Every small step balanced precariously above a chasm of past fears and unfulfilled promises. The moment blossomed into a shared vision of resilience. Yet the echo of Jenna's unsettled standing with her mother lingered heavily in the air. Would Jenna be able to stand her ground? Or would the pressure of those expectations send her tumbling back into dependency? This was more than just a turning point. It was a commitment to transformation, standing just beyond the periphery of possibility. As Rachel finished jotting their plans down, she sensed the convergence of two journeys manifesting on the horizon, one fraught with uncertainty, but glimmering with potential. The question of whether they would grasp that potential or falter in the face of their fears hung in the air. Their connection had deepened, but would it be strong enough to withstand the trials ahead? Tomorrow would test them, but it was the uncharted territory of the following days that stoked a growing ember within Rachel, a resolve to rise or fall together. Yet, even as they plotted their next steps, a nagging question lingered. What fresh complications awaited them just beyond tomorrow, threatening to derail their hard-earned progress? The morning sun broke through the cracks in the faded curtains, casting linear patterns on the kitchen floor, a canvas of light and shadow that felt strangely reminiscent of her own internal struggle. As Rachel sipped her coffee, she reflected on the weight of the impending day. The conversation Jenna was about to have with her mother hung over them like a storm cloud. It was a stark reminder of the tangled web of expectations that both she and Jenna had been caught in for far too long. Rachel needed clarity today. Not just for Jenna, but undeniably for herself as well. The idea of picking up her paintbrush had maneuvered itself into her consciousness as a lifeline, but doubts stirred. The last time she painted, it felt like she was pushing against a suffocating mantle of obligation, desperate to create but stifled by fear of inadequacy. Do you think I'm ready to do this? Rachel questioned aloud, her mind weaving between the anticipation of both the confrontation Jenna was facing and the creative endeavor she wanted to step into. Was she ready to paint? Ready to break free from the self-imposed limitations that held her back? Her inner dialogue echoed Jenna's anxieties. After all, both were stepping into uncharted territory. The thought of disappointing her own expectations loomed, but maybe it was time to redefine what those expectations entailed. Embracing vulnerability might be the very approach that could trigger a breakthrough. She texted Jenna, "Remember to set the context for the conversation. Highlight your growth. You are not walking into that room merely to be judged. You're stepping in as a stronger version of yourself." The moment her thumb hit send, she felt an exhilarating rush, a shared commitment binding them both. While waiting for a reply, Rachel's phone pinged a message from her coworker, Lisa, about a potential art exhibition. A flicker of excitement sparked within her. Was this the opportunity she had been unconsciously yearning for? Words unfolded across the screen like blooming flowers, describing a call for new artists and their works. Rachel felt her heartbeat quicken, excitement mingling with terror. Maybe I could showcase something, she murmured to herself, heart racing at the notion. But doubt immediately followed. What if I'm not good enough? What if no one wants to see my work? Each query was a sinkhole that threatened to swallow her resolve whole. Drawing a deep breath, Rachel glanced at the disheveled stack of canvases leaning against the wall, remnants of her ambition. A flicker of determination ignited. This was the crossroads. Just as she was pushing Jenna to stand firm against expectations, she had to rally her own courage. Inspiration surged. She had always found tranquility in the strokes of her brush, a language that transcended words. Jenna's message arrived, a mix of resolve and trepidation as she shared her plan for the upcoming meeting. I'll show her I've changed, it read. But beneath the surface lay the uncertainty Rachel saw in her own reflections. Texting back her encouragement, she felt an ache of familial solidarity. They were both on the brink of confrontation, not just with their families but with themselves. Remembering the art show, the contrast drew her focus back toward her own aspirations. What if I just started something small? She proposed mentally, thinking of pieces she could bring together. Perhaps the exhibition wouldn't just restore her passion, but also become a stepping stone towards self-acceptance. With every imagined brushstroke came clarity against the background of insecurities. As the hours stretched before Jenna's meeting, Rachel felt the intensity of the day wrapping around her. It was more than just Jenna's potential transformation. It echoed her own opportunity to confront her fears and reclaim her identity through painting. But doubt lingered ominously, a dark silhouette against burgeoning hopes. Could she really balance both their journeys without losing herself? The fear of failure loomed large, an invisible gate blocking the way to fulfillment. Jenna's voice broke through her contemplation. Once more she was calling to report back after the meeting. The flutter in Rachel's chest pulsed with anxious expectation. Would Jenna's experience pull Rachel into her own awakening? Or would the other shoe drop and derail their progress? The moment had come to face more than family expectations. Their journey demanded something deeper, a confrontation against the lingering shadows of doubt. What new challenges lay beneath the surface, as they stood on the brink of transformation? As Jenna prepared to reveal her truths, Rachel realized she was poised in a high-stakes game that could rewrite both their narratives. Would they rise victorious, or succumb to the weight of apprehensions? The answer lingered just beyond reach, inviting turmoil and triumph alike. Rachel's phone buzzed violently on the counter, a premature declaration of the news to come. She picked it up, her breath momentarily hitching as Jenna's name flickered across the screen. Taking a deep breath, she swiped to answer, steeling herself for the winds of change that would chime through the voice of her daughter. Mom, can we talk? Jenna's voice was steadier than Rachel anticipated, yet the undercurrents of anticipation trembled like a tightened cord. Rachel nodded, even though they were miles apart. Of course, honey. I'm here. I went into the meeting with courage, Jenna continued, the confidence in her tone weaving a sense of pride through Rachel. I told her everything I've been working on, and how I'm ready to reclaim my voice. But then there was a pause, a small sigh laden with emotion. She brought up all the things I haven't accomplished yet. The weight of her expectations felt like a stone. Rachel's heart sank a little, tying it based on Jenna's words. It echoed her own fears, the haunting concept of inadequacy lurking behind every initiative, every brush of fate's hand. She dismissed what I've done, Mom. I really tried to focus on myself, but it felt like I was drowning, Jenna continued, layers of frustration lining each syllable. And I couldn't keep it in anymore. I told her that I needed her to accept me for who I am now, not who she wants me to be. Rachel felt a flicker of admiration for Jenna's bravery melded with a motherly instinct to shield her child from pain. Jenna, that took so much strength. You have to remind yourself that your path is yours to define, Rachel encouraged, her own words subtly a mirror to what she too longed to believe. A moment of silence lingered, and Rachel's mind turned inward. She needed to embody that same strength. While Jenna faced the tempest of familial expectations, Rachel was not exempt from her struggles, creative blockages intertwined with self-validations. "And now I'm going to follow your lead," she declared, voice firm. "I think I'm going to paint." "You're serious?" Jenna's disbelief crackled through the connection. "Yes. I need to start somewhere. I need to reclaim that part of myself, just like you did today," Rachel replied, feeling a tide of vulnerability wash in, a reminder that strength is often birthed from the willingness to be exposed. The idea of picking up the brush ignited a flicker of resolve. Even if she faltered, it would be her journey, a parallel narrative to Jenna's, yet uniquely her own. Her confidences began swirling as Jenna spoke again, weaving through the bittersweet strands of their shared experience. "Let us hold each other accountable, okay? You can text me and I'll tell you when I'm feeling weak. You know I'll push you to begin." "I need that," Rachel confessed aloud, the truth hanging heavy between them. Together, they formed a pact, two women rising above the tangled expectations, wielding their individual battles as a collective point of strength. As they hung up, Rachel stood before the stack of canvases, not a single one void of potential. Their textures whispered stories of latent creativity, of dreams shelved under the burden of doubt. She could see her fingers tracing the edges of fractured identities, her own as much as Jenna's. Bit by bit, layer by layer, she could begin to unpack these burdens. The thought of the upcoming art exhibition surged through her with buoyancy, pulling at the corners of her thoughtful silence. Embracing the potential of her work became a declaration, a silent revolution against the self-imposed restraints she had lodged in her heart for years. The canvas screamed for attention, and with a deep breath, she picked up her brush, the weight of expectation shifting into something hopeful. But even as she dipped into the colors that splattered across the plate, doubt crept back like a shadow. Would this endeavor validate her worth? Or would it only reveal the cracks she feared? The moment felt critical. Affirmation dangled just beyond temptation, balanced precariously on the edge of creativity. What awaited? On the other side of the brushstroke? As she drew her first line, Rachel realized this was just the beginning. Another convergence where the personal battle met professional aspirations. Would she emerge stronger with each stroke, or would her fears unravel her attempts? The answer lingered just out of reach, promising both heartache and renewal. The first stroke on the canvas felt invigorating, each movement of the brush a rebellion against the self-doubt that had loomed over her for years. Rachel could feel her heartbeat synchronize with the rattle of colors blending together. Bold hues danced under her careful guidance, as if they were slowly revealing unspoken narratives buried deep within her psyche. Yet, with each passing moment, a tightening coil of anxiety threaded through her veins. What if she couldn't express the emotions festering inside her? What if the colors betrayed her attempts to articulate her inner world? She paused, staring at that vibrant smear of crimson against her otherwise empty canvas. Could it symbolize the anger she felt toward unresolved aspirations? Or was it a reminder of passion reignited? Uncertainty gnawed at her. Rachel stepped back, examining her work from a distance, searching for something, any semblance of clarity. When she looked, she didn't see a masterpiece forming. Instead, chaos swirled in front of her. It mirrored the messiness of her life, of her relationship with Jenna, of her struggle against the invisible chains that held her back. That reflection both fascinated and terrified her. She had made a promise to Jenna, hadn't she? To be more than an echo of someone else's expectations. She inhaled deeply, filling her lungs with resolve. The thought propelled her forward once more, and she gripped the brush like a newfound weapon, committed to transforming her fear into a narrative on the canvas. Rachel moved again, letting instinct take over as she poured out layers of color. Each stroke grounded her. Each swirl became a declaration of intent, a voice that wrestled with silence. Imagery unfurled beneath her touch as she ventured deeper into this newfound territory. Yet, the nagging whisper of insecurity taunted her. What would others think? What if her shortcomings were exposed like gaping wounds? The looming art exhibition brought untold pressure with it, threatening to unravel her from the seams she was working diligently to mend. She scrubbed at the canvas furiously, her emotions reflecting in the intensity of her movements. "This is me," Rachel murmured, half to herself, half to the universe, as though declaring a reclamation of her identity. Slowly she realized the act of painting wasn't merely about creating a visual piece. It was a therapeutic unraveling, a way to confront her fears directly and in the midst of her fervent creation. An internal call to action began to provoke her thoughts. Each canvas she finished became more than just paint. It represented growth and evolution, a stepping stone to the emotional freedom she craved. And still, beneath that burgeoning creativity, the anxious anticipation bubbled within her. This defensive wall she built around herself began to crack. But was she ready to confront the world around her, to show them exactly who she was becoming? What if the world rejected her? As the dusk settled outside, casting long shadows through the studio, Rachel reluctantly took a seat, fatigue weaving its way into her limbs. She studied what she created, tracing her fingers over the wet paint. Despite her growing excitement, an avalanche of doubt surged forward. Her earlier promise to Jenna echoed ominously in her mind. Would she collect the courage to share this work, this raw expression, with those who might dissect it? The thought was suffocating. She glanced at her phone, Jenna's name flickering in her messages. They had vowed to be accountable. But, right now, it felt easier to hide out. If Rachel had any hope of journeying down this path of true self-discovery, she needed a strategy. Committing to the upcoming exhibition would require more than just creative expression. She had to open herself to evaluation not just externally, but inwardly. With renewed focus, she tapped a message to Jenna. "I'm struggling, and I'm not sure if I can go forward with the exhibit." Would Jenna's encouragement reignite her determination, or would it bring forth a distance she wasn't ready to confront? Her thumb hovered over the send button, an embodiment of vulnerability. Would Jenna affirm Rachel's fears, or push her to delve deeper into her artistry? The decision weighed heavily, suspended in that moment, potent and pregnant with possibility. A soft ping interrupted Rachel's turbulent thoughts, jolting her from her moment of indecision. The message notification drew her gaze, and the weight of its significance pressed down harder than before. She exhaled slowly, forcing herself to breathe amidst the chaos of uncertainty. Was Jenna going to respond with the comfort she desperately sought, or would she mirror the doubts already spiraling in Rachel's mind? Everyone around her seemed to have their lives neatly tied in bows, while she remained tangling in frayed edges. Desperately seeking clarity, Rachel's finger finally slid across the screen, sealing her fate. The message was sent. With a short glance out the window, she noted the darkening sky, feeling a sudden, sharp pang of vulnerability. She wondered if people outside her creative bubble could imagine the turmoil that was brewing inside her, a tempest of conflict in the guise of uninhibited paint strokes. Sitting back, Rachel returned her focus to the canvas, her inner world splattered across an unyielding stretch of white. As her paintbrush hovered above the wet surface, she returned to battling her insecurities. The swirling chaos before her reflected not just her struggle, but also a burgeoning desire to express a version of herself that transcended her previous limitations. She felt both energized and exhausted, a paradox that had become richly familiar. The practice of painting now stirred new courage, a gentle urge to embrace the messiness of her journey as a defining quality rather than a hindrance. It dawned on her that while she might fear exposure and judgment, concealing her truth would only serve to suffocate her growth. Embracing the emerging courage, Rachel pledged to channel her apprehension and defiance into her work. The painting process became a kind of ritualized confrontation. Every brushstroke peeled back layers of her guarded self. Each hue, each mark dripped with authenticity, even imperfection echoing the very tumult she wished to overcome. It was an act of defiance against the self-imposed checking of boxes she had always resigned herself to do. As the studio filled with the rich scent of wet paint and the evocative whispers of her community, Rachel confronted an epiphany. Perhaps her art didn't have to please others to be valid. Each completion, every creeping brushstroke, symbolized a triumph, an alchemy of emotional rawness transformed into something that could be shared with the world, if only she could believe in it long enough to display it. Yet with determination came trepidation. A part of her clung to fear, the gnawing anxiety that painted her success with doubt. Was she ready to truly bare her soul? The impending exhibition loomed like a specter in her thoughts, bringing back memories of failing to meet expectations. Rachel's phone buzzed again, sharper this time, nudging her to face reality. It was a promptly returned message from Jenna. Her friend's words, enthusiastic yet somehow weighted with concern. "I'm here for you. Just take one step at a time." Regaining her bearings, Rachel felt the tight coil of anxiety loosen slightly as she read those words. One step. It was manageable and comforting. Yet what would that step look like? As she contemplated the next move, a new urgency rose within her, one forged in the acceptance that fear could coexist with her burgeoning determination. But would she risk unveiling her artistic self, fully embracing both the perils and the promise that came with it? The canvas stood like a battle standard, filled with potential and unanswered questions. The time had come for Rachel to confront not only the exhibition but the very essence of her identity represented in every stroke she made. How would she navigate the crossroad between vulnerability and strength? Determined to find clarity, Rachel pondered her next move, ready to unearth the depth of her artistry. The moment of truth awaited. Would she fully commit to this newfound journey, or allow fear to rewrite the script of her destiny? Rachel sat in her studio, the familiar scent of oil paint enveloping her like a second skin, grounding her amidst the uncertainty swirling in her mind. The canvas before her, both a mirror and a window, beckoned with its stark white expanse, a space ripe for transformation yet haunted by her hesitation. This had always been her safe haven, where she could wrestle with her fears in solitude. Leaning forward, she dipped her brush into a cascade of color, a molten spectrum vibrant enough to inspire a heartbeat, but the brush hovered, almost quivering. What did it truly mean to take that next step? Rachel's thoughts raced as anxiety twisted in her chest. Each trembling brushstroke felt like a commitment, an unwillingness to turn back. And yet, the prospect of failing at exposing her deepest self paralyzed her. She could almost hear the quiet judgments of critics echoing in the recess of her mind, taunting her with past failures. Are you even good enough? A voice sneered from the back of her thoughts, swirling the colors of doubt into a murky gray. This nagging self-critique seemed persistent, almost insidious. Yet, she had just resolved to redefine her narrative, to paint not solely for others' approval, but to chronicle her own journey. Rachel recalled Jenna's encouragement with a small, determined smile, pivoting to the paint palette that lay scattered with fragments of her emotions. With renewed conviction, she set the brush down firmly on the canvas. Each stroke she attempted felt more vital than mere paint on fabric. It was a tangible declaration of existence, a rebellion against her quiet surrender to self-doubt. In her mind, the very notion of risking her work encompassed so much more than art. It transcended into acknowledging her identity and desires aloud, piercing through the veil of mediocrity she had worn for far too long. Suddenly, a spark ignited within her. She had begun the journey of self-discovery through this creative path, something she had been afraid of fully embracing. Every chaotic flick of her brush began to resonate not only as a reflection of her vulnerability, but also a powerful assertion of her resolve. But Rachel's focus shattered with memories of the exhibition looming, just weeks away. This was her crucible, not merely a display of her art but a showcase of her unvarnished self, and she feared the scrutiny that it would entail. Stepping back from the canvas, she assessed her work, heart beating wildly in her chest. The painting was undoubtedly a moment in her evolution, but it was flawed just like her. With one eye closed against the harsh studio light, she found herself hesitating once more at the precipice of her need for validation. Would she bow to the pressure of public critique? Or could she redefine the experience by prioritizing her own interpretation of success? In that moment, Rachel understood. Vulnerability was not a weakness. It morphed into an avenue for growth, a bridge to connect her past with her burgeoning aspirations and ambitions. She leaned closer to her canvas, realizing that to fully inhabit her creative identity, she would need to confront the heavy expectations she had placed not only on herself but also those she had perceived from others. She picked up her brush, slapping bold colors onto the canvas with defiance, representing the battles she felt so deeply within. The vibrancy of orange swirling into the jagged blues mirrored her identity. There was chaos, but there was also passion, a raw, unfiltered expression. The buzzing of her phone jolted her again, a reminder perhaps of the outside world. She hesitated for just a moment, then found herself diving back into her haunting swirl of colors. In this dance of paint, she came alive, fragmented but whole. Each stroke pulled from her primal instincts, steering her closer to confronting the crowd waiting beyond her studio doors. How would she translate this newfound bravery into action? As she painted the final strokes, Rachel felt a potent mix of anticipation and fear. Could she stand tall in her truth when the time came? The Canvas drying in front of her was no longer a battleground but a beacon guiding her to a decision. Was this truly the path she wished to tread? Rachel took a deep, shaky breath as she allowed the colors to spill over. The exhibition was not merely an impending event but an opportunity, a call for clarity in every moment, every brushstroke. With determination, she stepped toward the mirror that reflected not just her physical self but the creation she was becoming. Would she step out of this sanctuary and claim her identity in a world that often sought to suppress it? Or would regret paint a different narrative altogether? The hard truth lay ahead, and she was ready to face it, yet uncertainty still loomed as she pondered how the outside world would meet this assertion of her true self. The moment of unveiling was drawing near. Rachel stood before her canvas, the drying paint glistening under the studio lights, radiating a vibrant chaos that was all too reminiscent of her current emotional state. As she stepped back, she felt each brushstroke pulsating with a newfound energy, its imperfect colors reflecting her own imperfections. In that moment, she decided that embracing her flaws was the essence of her artistry. It was a manifestation of her journey, not just of her artistry, but of her self-acceptance. Yet even as she felt this awakening, the anxiety clung to her like a dense fog. The date of the exhibition loomed closer, surrounding her with a sense of urgency that was both exhilarating and suffocating. She placed her hands on her hips, a posture of defiance meant to push away the weight of judgment, but it was a battle that raged within her. She had faced difficult decisions before, but never had they felt as significant as this moment. The prospect of rejection was one she had long avoided, yet now it felt intertwined with her need for expression. Rachel closed her eyes and took a long deep breath, feeling the air fill her lungs while visualizing the vibrant colors on her canvas, each hue representing another facet of her persona. Those colors were symbols of the woman she aspired to be, someone unafraid of unveiling her true self. The self-doubt that had gripped her heart began to quiver under her resolve. As she opened her eyes, she felt a shift in the atmosphere. This wasn't just about art anymore. It was about redefining her identity. For years, she had allowed the opinions of institutions and critics to dictate her worth. But examining her work now, she zipped her gaze toward the mirror once more, the reflection showcasing a woman who deserved to express her vulnerabilities. Creating art was more than technique. It was a means to confront her anxieties head-on. She recalled Jenna's unwavering support, their late-night discussions about dreams and aspirations bolstering her resolve. If she could lay bare her soul on canvas, surely she could do the same when faced with the inevitable scrutiny of others. Yet another internal voice emerged, reminding her of past failures. Those critics from her previous exhibitions lurked in the corners of her mind, raising their voices, whispering doubts. What if this isn't as good as you think? What if they laugh? She shook her head defiantly. What if I don't care? The thought was liberating. This exhibition could represent a new chapter, one where art became the breath of truth, not a cry for validation. Gradually, a plan formed in her mind. She would paint with such authenticity that criticism would dissipate like dust in the wind. With conviction boiling beneath her skin, Rachel dug into her palette, mixing colors with intensity. She would create pieces that told stories of strife and resolve, a collection that screamed, I am here, and this is who I am. To share her reality predominantly served as an invitation for others to confront their OWS. She poured her heart into each stroke. A sense of calm settled amidst the chaos. The notion of failing became secondary to the idea of sharing herself, raw and unfiltered. Minutes turned into hours, and she lost herself in the process. The music playing in the background faded into a symphony of her thoughts, merging and amalgamating with instinct, urgency supporting her every move. This was not merely an exposition but a full-circle moment, one that transported her from fear to acceptance, from guarded secrecy to open-heartedness. Then came the disquiet again. The buzzing phone rang out once more, anchoring her back to reality. She glanced at the screen and saw Jenna's name flashing. With a mixture of anticipation and anxiety, she answered. Hey, how's the painting coming along? Jenna's voice was bright, laced with genuine curiosity. Rachel paused, weighing her response. I'm getting there. I think I'm ready. Jenna's cheers echoed through the receiver, but Rachel suddenly felt a spike of apprehension. But what if I'm still not good enough? Jenna was silent for a moment. You only need to be good enough for yourself. Remember, the time has come for you to face the critics, including the one inside of you. As soon as she hung up, Rachel's heart raced again. There it was, the undeniable challenge she needed to face. The moment of truth was approaching, and this time, she felt the anticipation tingling through her fingertips. Would she embrace her truth openly, even if it risked exposure? Rachel trembled with the weight of that realization, for today, she would decide not only what kind of artist she wanted to be, but also what kind of person she wished to become. With a deep breath, she reached for her brush once again, ready to pour herself fully onto the canvas. Would self-acceptance guide her hand? Or would the haunting whispers of doubt cast long shadows over her brave decision? As Rachel stood in her studio, the cacophony of colors swirling vibrantly across the canvas reflected her turbulent journey over the past weeks. Each brushstroke felt like a victory, each color choice a testament to her evolving identity. For years, she had confined herself to the sidelines of her own life, carefully crafting an image that met the expectations of others while denying her own desires. But now, as she faced her latest creation, she felt an exhilaration surging through her. Yesterday had been monumental. The opening of her exhibition had rippled through the community like a burgeoning wave, and Rachel had taken the plunge to showcase not just her art, but her authentic self. The emotions, anxieties, and triumphs captured on canvas were now on full display, no longer mere thoughts hidden beneath layers of self-doubt. She could hear the whispers of those first critiques and doubts. Will they like it? Fade away against the backdrop of her resolute transformation. The initial hours of the exhibition had been stomach-churning. As she walked through the gallery filled with onlookers, she had felt the familiar squeeze of anxiety constricting her heart. Yet, when multitudes began to approach her, each fragment of fear started to dissolve with their words of admiration. Individuals resonated with the rawness of her creations, each brushstroke eliciting nods of understanding rather than judgment. It was in that pivotal moment, surrounded by enthusiastic conversations and heartfelt acknowledgments, that Rachel experienced a profound shift within herself. She saw the genuine appreciation in those who surveyed her pieces, the stories, the pain, the triumph, and realized her art had forged connections beyond her wildest dreams. She had not just displayed her creations. She had opened a portal for others to confront their narratives, similar to the journey she had taken with Jenna. As the day unfolded, praise adorned her like a daisy crown. She was no longer simply a school administrator navigating mundane duties, or a mother distracted by her daughter's challenges. Instead, she had emerged as a creator, fully alive in her artistic expression, embracing every flicker of apprehension that may arise. The deep-seated rejection she once feared felt like a distant echo. In those quiet moments when nobody watched, Rachel found herself reflecting on her journey. Just months ago, she had been encased by the shadows of self-doubt, stepping cautiously around her passions. Now she stood amidst the bright light of her achievements, solid confidence anchoring her existence. Throughout the exhibition, her heart swelled with pride, not just for the art she had created but for the woman she had become, an artist willing to bare her soul. Days passed, and the exhibition turned into a magnificent affirmation of her talent, leading local art circles to recognize her growing reputation. Offers for collaborative projects began to flood in, and each request ignited that fire within Rachel, a powerful blend of anticipation and purpose. The validation she had sought for so long now felt like a natural extension of her journey, transforming once fragile self-esteem into solid competence. Jenna too was thriving. After their honest conversation, she had embraced her resolve, finding her own footing amidst parental expectations. She had taken a position at a nearby community organization, working directly with those experiencing hardship, a profession that aligned with her intrinsic values. In their separate journeys of transformation, both women had achieved a sense of independence previously shunned by endless cycles of debt, judgment, and dependency. Their relationship flourished with this newfound grounding, morphing from necessity into camaraderie, a bond built on mutual respect and understanding. Rachel had learned that confronting her vulnerabilities head-on not only voided their power but also strengthened familial ties. And Jenna had embraced her narrative, recognizing her potential as individuals who would no longer allow the past to hold them captive. As Rachel prepared for her next painting session, she realized that transformation was an ongoing journey. She still faced the potential of rejection, but an ingrained confidence propelled her forward. Each stroke on her canvas became a welcome reminder of her worth, as she engaged in a dialogue with herself through her art. Today was not an end. It was a luminous beginning, one where she had conquered her fears and reclaimed her identity with tenacity and joy. Rachel knew she would continue to share her story, one drip of paint at a time, inviting others to discover their own potential within layers of vulnerability. And now, as you read about Rachel's inspiring journey of growth, it's time to make a move of your own. You need to subscribe now to our channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that unfold just like Rachel's. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters. Comment below with your thoughts and reactions. Your insights are valuable to us. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread the message of personal overcoming. Your action can inspire someone else today.